or its advertisers.
Ladies and gentlemen, good night, or good evening, whichever one is more applicable. Welcome to another edition of On the Map Straight Talk across the Narrows. Of course, if you look at me, you would realize I'm wearing a surgical mask. That means I have guests in the studio, of course. You know, we're still a bit mindful of all of the issues surrounding COVID-19, so you know, we have decided to keep the surgical mask on, you know, just as a precaution to observe the protocols and so on. As all of us would be aware, a lot of things have happened. Indeed, I have not been here on the map for quite a bit, mostly throughout the election cycle that we just had, and quite a lot of things have changed from the last time I was here until now. We have a new government sitting in Bastille, a new prime minister sitting in Bastille, and you know, I think most of the mandates insofar as COVID-19 is concerned, they have already been lifted. Most of the travel mandates and so on have been lifted, so persons who would be looking to travel to the Federation from overseas, you fill out the form online, but you don't have to wait for an approval before you could travel to the Federation. So the new Prime Minister has sort of freed up the thing, but nonetheless we are here and we are having our mask on. In a bit I will introduce my guest, not just yet. I'll hold you in suspense a bit because today is indeed an auspicious day, and my guests will tell you exactly what today is, what the significance of today is, and why they are here. They've already agreed that they're going to talk a little local and federal politics with me also. So we're going to have a grand time, you know, on the show tonight. Of course, at the top of the show, we always like to welcome in all of our listeners and viewers, because you know, we are not just going live on Van Radio, the Eastern Caribbean's powerhouse. We are also live on Facebook, on the Van Radio Facebook page. We are also live on Van Radio's YouTube page, and of course we are also on www.vanradio.com. so you can see us, you can listen to us via all of the different media, and we're very happy for those of you who have decided to join us. Of course, we're always thankful for those persons who are willing to call in and be a part of the show. You know, On the Mark is a staple. We've been a staple on the radio for quite some time, and the show is what it is because of the many people who call in and are part of the show. We have lots of viewers and listeners who, you know, they are the Monday morning quarterbacks. When the show is finished at 10 tonight, I'll get about 5-6 calls that would take me straight down to midnight, and they would say, well, you should have said this on the show, you should have said that. And I always tell my good Monday morning quarterbacks, who I appreciate very much, I appreciate them very much, I always say, you know, you have all these really, really good views. The show could benefit a lot from you calling during the 8 to 10 period, because some of these ideas that you call and you give after the show would be so much better if you call in, you know, during the time. And I'm hoping that one or two of my after the show quarterbacks would be willing to call in tonight and share some of those really, really good views. Because there's one thing about this show, we appreciate our callers, we appreciate everybody's view. Everybody doesn't have to be right, or everybody can't be right about every single topic, but everybody has the right to have an opinion, and everybody has the right to have a view, and we have to respect everybody's opinion and everybody's view, whether we share the same opinion or we don't share the same opinion. That's why we can have debate. That's why we can live in the way that we live here in this free society here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Of course, top of the show, we always like to welcome in everybody from wherever they are. So tonight I'll just do a general welcome, wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching us. We want to welcome you. We just came out of Culturama here on Nevis, and we had quite a bit of our citizens from in the diaspora from all over the world who were here to celebrate Culturama with us. We weren't able to have Culturama in person since 2019, and so a lot of Nevisians came in to celebrate with us here in 2020. Even though we still had the restrictions, some persons kept telling me how difficult it was, to deal with all of the having to get the permission and all of that. And we want to thank them for coming. We did have a splendid time during Culturama, celebrate the emancipation of our people and so on. And it was an expression of our culture, and I was very happy to be out in the evening and to celebrate with our local people and with a lot of our people who came in from the diaspora. And of course, just after Culturama, we had the elections, and of course, we all saw what happened. The good folks over on the island of St. Kitts, they would have gone and given a majority to the Labour Party, who now forms the government. And I want to say congratulations to Dr. Terence Jew, somebody who I know very well in my days going over to St. Kitts on Win FM for their show. We've had many debates over there. Always somebody who I've held in very high esteem, very intelligent young man, somebody who has a bright future. And of course, his future is now, linked to the future of St. Kitts and Nevis, as he has taken up the mantle as the Prime Minister. And I want to congratulate him and his entire team, many of which I know well. My good cousin Conris, I want to congratulate him for, regaining that seat. He would have won that seat and been one of the youngest parliamentarians. He then came back in 2020, lost that seat, but he persevered and he has won the seat again, and I want to congratulate him. He won in quite remarkable fashion. Of course, Jeffrey, I also want to congratulate Honorable Dr. Jeffrey Hanley, somebody again who I know well. And of course, my brother Samuel Duggins, now Honorable Samuel Duggins, good friend of mine. We don't ever pass each other straight. Somebody again who, as a young person, I always looked at him, and from the very first time I met Samuel, he carried himself with distinction and so on, and we've always had a good rapport. And the people of Number 4 decided to cast their lot with him, and I want to wish him all of the best, of course. Also, Dr. Denzel Douglas, what can you say about the Right Honorable Dr. Denzel Douglas? There's not much that has not been said, He's somebody who has certainly fought throughout the years, somebody who has been battle tested. Of course, we know he was our second Prime Minister and is now back in government and is Minister of Foreign Affairs. And I would want to wish, the government the best. Of course, all of the nominated members of the government, you want to wish them the best and hope that, that they would govern for all of the people of the Federation, for the people of St. Kitts and for the people of Nevis. Of course, in as far as the election goes, the people of Nevis decided to keep Nevis blue. So when you looked at the map of Nevis, there was a lovely map that they had out on election night, and for Nevis it was all blue. And of course, as the chairman of the Concerned Citizens Movement, I want to express our thanks. I know the Premier and leader and our three candidates, they would have been on the show last week and they would have said thank you, and I also want to add my thanks to all of the people of Nevis for continuing to put your trust in the Concerned Citizens Movement, and we would endeavor to continue working on behalf of the people of Nevis, continue to earn that trust, so that whenever we come to you to ask you to refresh our mandate, that we come knowing that we have done the best job that we could do. We come knowing that we have done a job that you, the people of Nevis, could be proud of. So all in all, we feel very good about the elections, and things are looking hopeful, of course, for the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Ladies and gentlemen, I took about 10-12 minutes to go through my little introduction, and so it's about time that I bring in my guests. I have two guests here in the studio with me tonight, and we're gonna have a wonderful time. I have Ras Iroy and Ras Marcus, and I want to say good night to you, gentlemen, and I'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, both of you. No strangers, of course, to the radio, and no strangers to Van Radio and to On The Mark. I've been here with you many times, and Honorable Premier Mark Brantley himself would have been here with you many times, and you guys are here this evening because it's a special day, and you come with a lot of things that you want to say. So good night, gentlemen.
Yeah, it's a very significant day within the history of black people. Rastafari, I should specialize in, but I should greet you in the name of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I and Empress Menin, God and Goddess, Rastafari, And the significance of today is the 135, Earth Strong of high esteem Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And the works of Marcus Mosiah Garvey, the contribution that he made for the development of black people right across the eyeballs, He would have done it locally, regionally, and internationally. One of the most profound black leader that ever exists upon creation. As a matter of fact, I should go on and say the greatest black leader outside His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I, who have existed upon this earth. So we are here to celebrate His Earth Strong. So I give Him thanks and praise for being here today. Rastafari.
Yes, greetings in the divine name of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I. I also want to bring greetings on his beloved Empress Menin, and to all our ancestors, especially Marcus Garvey at a day like today. As Brother Marcus would have said, we here to celebrate his life, but what is also most important, it's also a good opportunity for I to reflect on the life of Marcus Garvey and the kind of impact that he would have had on the region, black people, the whole black liberation. And if Marcus was alive today, what kind of advice he might have had for I, especially in this time. It's nice that the minister liable to introduce the whole political realm. It would be nice if we can touch on it and see what's in store for I as a people, and what is expected of our governments in the region as it comes to, the liberation of the people. Looking forward to a really good show tonight.
Yeah, so the significance of Marcus' works, as he trod the earth during the times, Marcus Garvey went around and preached about, the coming of a black king, He said, look to the east, and there shall be a king to deliver the black people out of bondage. Because, we were once walked the street of gold in Africa, and we was taken away across, we were taken to the west in bondage, in chains and shackles, and we end up in slavery. We lost our God, we lost our heritage, we lost our culture, we lost everything black people could ever have. But Marcus Garvey came and tell you, look to the east. And, Emperor Haile Selassie in the 2nd of November, was crowned King of the Kings and Lord of Lords. The conquering lion of the tribe of Judah, elected himself and light to the world. And his new name was Haile Selassie, which means the power of the Trinity. And the power of the Trinity is the Almighty, Rastafari.
Aye.
So, I have to pay the great tribute to Marcus Garvey today, because he was the one who actually see Rastafari, the beginning and the growth of Rastafari, and the trial and the tribulation that Rastafari been through. You would think, well, we would have leave the earth in this time, but instead Rastafari just find themselves scattered right across the world. And to this day, probably the most existing force out there in these times, Haile Selassie.
Yes. Marcus would have came at a time, he came at a time when the whole colonialism and racism was really showing up its face in the islands, in the diaspora, and he would have moved to different parts of the world. His trip to places like Costa Rica and so on, and seeing the living conditions of the people, was one of the things that would have contributed to Marcus' consciousness. Where he would have been faced with racism and so on straight up, and so he really had that dedication to make sure that, hey, listen, there must be an end to that. Black people cannot afford to be living under these kind of conditions. Black people cannot afford to be made second-class citizens for any longer. And so he would have started out on a very challenging task, because Garvey would have had to face up to and challenge the system. And once you're challenging the system, you're going to be up for problems. Because he was challenging the colonial system, the whole British monarchy, the whole way in which things were done. And it was not popular. A lot of the leaders in the region and even in the US looked at Garvey with a lot of suspicion. Garvey really brought hope to black people. You can go back and think about the UNIA, his organization which he formed around 1917 or thereabouts, Universal Negro Improvement Association, and he got hundreds of thousands of supporters. The kind of global impact that Marcus Garvey had in that time, without internet and all these things, it was remarkable. You find today you can't even get 200 people come together. But Marcus was able to gain that kind of support around the world, and black people started to look up and say, hey, this man is reminding us that we are worth something. Even just the whole uniform of the UNIA, he made it his duty so that it was something that the members would wear with pride. And this whole march and celebrations. This man had some serious convention that lasted for weeks. But Garvey had his mission clearly laid out. And as such, he would have handpicked a lot of the people who he would have put in certain, authoritative positions. Garvey's approach was from a political and an economic standpoint. when I look at his work, those are the two categories which I could clearly see. Because Garvey was a man who would have made many appeals to the League of Nations. You know, consistent appeals, speaking of the decolonialization of many of the countries in Africa, especially those that were ruled and colonized by places like Germany and so on. And Garvey would have, I think he was ignored to a great extent. They ignored him in terms of they didn't take heed, but I know they actually listened to Garvey.
You know, gentlemen, if I could just, because I know it's your show to talk about Garvey and today being his, birthday, would have been his birthday, were he still here with us. One of the things that jumped out about me when I looked at the life of Garvey, and of course knowing that you two gentlemen would be here with me, and knowing the significance of why you would be here, I did a little, just a little reading up to make sure that I wouldn't be lost. And I didn't feel like I would be lost, because of course, in school, once you're in school, they teach you a little history, and they teach you, one of the things they teach you about is Marcus Garvey. But one of the things that really jumped out at me was that Marcus Garvey lived to be 52 or thereabouts. So many of the things that we are speaking about Marcus Garvey doing, such as the organization that Ras I would have just spoken about and so on. These are things that Marcus Garvey did as a very, very young person. And, above everything else that stood out to me about Marcus Garvey is that he started doing these things from a very, very young age. From his mid-20s, he was already an activist.
Yes.
He didn't wait until his later days. I mean, if you look around and you look at people in their 20s, most people in their 20s still thinking about, where's the next lime happening this weekend and so on, and still have more of, some persons still have more of an adolescent type of mentality, a way of thinking. But here was somebody in his mid to late 20s, already starting his organization, born in Jamaica, in a time when you had no television, you didn't even have radio. And here's somebody who would have left from Jamaica, migrated to the United States, to New York, at that time one of the biggest cities in the world, and he would have gone there and made a significant mark. He was significant enough that he was on the radar of law enforcement and so on. And in those days, as a black man or as a Negro, if you're trying to push for any type of equal rights, or if you're trying to push for any type of black rights, with what was going on in America, segregation and black people not having any type of rights, you were seen as being some sort of radical or some sort of anti-establishment or anti-government type of person. And here's this young man from Jamaica who was able to start his organization in Jamaica, because that's significant, and then went to New York and started a chapter of the organization there, and became so significant that even the government took notice. And that is what stood out to me about Marcus Garvey. At a young age, he was able to make a real impact.
You said Marcus Garvey was from Jamaica. That's what you said. Well, there's a strong debate now going on in the world whether Marcus Garvey was actually born in Jamaica or he was born in St. Kitts. Marcus Garvey mom is from St. Kitts.
Okay, I was not aware that. I'm going to take a note of that now.
Yes, take a note of that, right? And they say Marcus Garvey was born in St. Anne's, Jamaica, but he's also St. Anne's Bay in Sunny Point as well. And history now is pointing that actually Marcus Garvey was born in St. Kitts, but left St. Kitts when he was about 1 or 2 years old to go to Kingston, Jamaica. Okay? But let's look at the militant side of Marcus Garvey. Why he was so vibrant, you know, in advancing the state of mind of black people. Marcus Garvey's father was a stone builder and a grave digger. And at a very tender age, Marcus Garvey, he was probably helping his dad, you know, digging a grave, and he went down into the hole to take out the ladder. So the dad pulled up the ladder and leave Marcus Garvey down there crying, you know, for a long, long time, you know. When he crying out to his dad to help him, his dad just ignore him. And Marcus Garvey realized from that time he had to be self-reliant because there was nobody to help him. And he developed that kind of strategy within his mind. When he was as he grew up, you know, he became friendly with a little white friend of him, a little little girl. And the parents for the white girl, you know, decided, well, Marcus Garvey, because he was black, you know, wasn't really worthy, you know, to be friendly with the daughter. So they took away the daughter, sent her away to England, and called Marcus Garvey a nigger, and let him know, keep away from his daughter, and let the lady know never to, you know, talk to Marcus Garvey again. So Marcus Garvey developed that kind of militant mind, you know, to fight against, you know, racism, you know, which have been oppressing black people for over hundreds and hundreds of years, you know. So he came as a savior, you know, to remind our black people that we should be self-reliant, you know. There's a way out there, we can make that the way forward as a people, because we are strong in mind as well, you know. Yes, I.
Yeah, there's definitely that claim, and there's some history to it. Hopefully, I could share a piece of it later on. But you mentioned Marcus Garvey being so powerful, and he stood out that even the authorities were looking at him. And that is quite true, because that actually led to what I would call, you know, the fall of Garvey, if there was such a thing. Because we all know Marcus Garvey was seriously targeted. And it's no surprise, because we see it here, even in the islands. Once you standing up for that level of consciousness, especially when it comes to anti-colonialism, you're telling people, hey, God ain't white, you know, God is black, and God look just like you, and them kind of things, you must be faced with a lot of opposition. But what more so is that, just like Gaddafi and all these other great leaders who had something of promise when it comes to the economics of black people, once you come along the line that you're going to tell black people, listen, we are going to be independent, we're going to wean ourselves off all these foreign companies, and we're going to support ourselves, build our own, support our own. That project is going to be seriously hampered by the authorities, because it is easier for them to keep us as a black people down, uneducated, poor, so that we are always dependent on them. And Marcus said none of that. And so the authorities themselves would have found people, paid people, CIA agents would have been paid to go and infiltrate the UNIA. And so a lot of the charges, fraud and all these things that they leveled against Marcus Garvey were things that were made up. And up until this day, I am not quite sure, but I don't think the US has really pardoned Marcus Garvey for all of those things, which later on we found out that were really not true. Even in Jamaica, Garvey himself, his homeland, he faced a lot of criticism and victimization. And so even the Jamaican government, as much as he's a national hero, more credence need to be given to Marcus Garvey and the works of Marcus Garvey. Mutabaruka would have always said that, hey, the philosophies and opinions of Marcus Garvey. This is a book, a compilation of information from Marcus Garvey, compiled by his wife. This really is something that should be used in our schools. It should be used as our guide for black people and the whole development, even within the political arena, the whole development of our country. Because here we have, look in St. Kitts Nevis, I mean, we have to look at our businesses, how our black businesses are surviving. How much of our tailors, how much new tailors we see popping up, how much new seamstress we see popping up, how much more local boat builders, taximen, because following the footsteps of Marcus Garvey, basically saying, listen, black people, you have to develop your own business. You have to support your own business. You can't depend on other people to support you. You have to start by supporting yourself. And I'm not too sure how well we are doing that in this country. I've seen a lot of small businesses suffer at the hands of some of the bigger foreign companies here in St. Kitts Nevis. I'm not sure what's in place to buffer that effect. Is it government that needs to put something in place so that the smaller companies can survive? Let's look at the cannabis industry, for example. Who knows what's going to happen if we are given the green light? The foreign companies are going to be able to come in and say, okay, we're ready to set up shop. And as much as you give Rastafari a free license and give locals cheap prices and so on, what is going to happen? They're going to have to be competing with the foreign companies who are already at an advantage. And so things have to be put in place to protect the small companies, protect the local industries, so that they can survive.
Would you be willing to take a few calls?
Sure, man.
Some callers who are trying to get in. Okay, let's go to the line and take our first call for
Good
tonight.
night.
Caller, good night. You're on the mark.
Oh, Mark is on?
No, this is Troy Libert.
What you said?
This is Troy Libert.
Tomorrow night?
No, this is Troy Libert. How are you doing?
Good. So Mark is not on tonight?
No, he's not on tonight.
Okay, thank you. So I was tuning and I didn't get anything.
No, the show is on,
Eh?
The show is on.
Oh.
This is Troy Libert. I am hosting the show.
Let me try again then. Okay, thank you.
Alright, you take care of yourself. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Troy Libert and I am your host for tonight. This is the On The Mark show. I am here with Ras Iroy and Ras Marcus on the occasion of the birthday of Marcus Garvey. And, while we continue the discussion, I have to ask for a little bit more information on, the born in St. Kitts thing, because I had never heard it before. And I am one who always like to seek new knowledge when it comes, to me. And so I'm very, very curious. I was very intrigued by hearing that, and certainly if I could get a little bit more insight on that,
Okay, while I bring up the information, you are the education teacher, and we would like to see, as a Rastaman, as a Rastafarian, we want to see some more black history being taught in the school. We want to hear more about Marcus Garvey, We're not being hearing much about our ancient history and so on in school. I mean, when I was chatting to school, I remember one time I write about Haile Selassie and Marcus Garvey, and I was actually given almost like 0 for my essay competition,
I think we've come quite a long way. I know in our high schools and so on, in Caribbean history, we do history of Rastafari and so on. A lot is actually taught about Marcus Garvey. I myself would have been to school a long time ago and I would have learned about Marcus Garvey in history. and I'm pretty sure that we have developed since then. We have another call on the line. Let's see who's there. Caller, you're on the mark. Good night.
Try good night.
Good night. Good night. How are you?
I'm good. I really thought Mark wouldn't on, but Mark is not on, so I could come on with you too. I have a problem, Troy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Guyana, but I live here over 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Over 30 years I'm living here.
Mm-hmm.
And I know St. Kitts and Nevis is one federation. I just do vendoring, I just buy mangoes and so on. I go down to St. Kitts and sell. It have a police woman named Rose. That's the only police woman that harass people. They said, if you have a trolley, you could put your load and you could push around. But this woman don't like to see people come from Nevis. She said, you come from Nevis when kinda stay over there.
Wow.
And furthermore, me not like foreigner. Me not like foreigner. Me say, you don't like foreigner? Think it's Nevis people, they all over the world. What is your problem? I live in here 30 years. I never had a problem with the law. That woman Ted punched herself from Carl Charlestown police station finding out about me. I said, well, you think I wanted? I don't wanted. Me wanted for nothing. She called Charlestown. They tell she they don't know the woman more than seeing the woman. Why Rose is going on like that? People can't make the bread. If you have a trolley, you could push. She went in at Rams. Rams tell her, no, if the people, I let the people that sell, she don't want that. That's the only woman harassing people for make. I have perishable goods. Try if you go down to St. Kitts, especially in the week, you don't find more than 2 vendors in the market. Nobody going in the market. You got to take your load and try see how you could able for hustle your load. Try me nearly 60. I can't get a job. I trying to do vendoring thing. I cannot put a stand out on the road. I cannot do that. If you have a trolley, you could push your trolley. What is this woman problem? I don't know. And then when she finish, she gonna talk about she don't like foreigner. I want Rose not to understand that me come here for vote when they sharing out free book. I live in the Federation over 30 years. Very few people even know me. A lot of people taking me for Nevis and Kittition. And when you look, the family, they all over the world. What is this woman problem? Was she calling the station finding out about me? I am not wanted.
Caller,
me wanted. I live here over 30 years, Mark. Everybody know me.
Caller, I can hear the pain in your voice. You know, it's something that I'm going to definitely look into. I've taken a note of it. And certainly, here in St. Kitts and Nevis, you know, everybody.
Come down, back down, St. Kitts. I say, what? I coming back to St. Kitts. St. Kitts and Nevis is one federation.
Of course, one federation, and everybody should be free to apply their trade once they're not breaking any laws.
So when you call them, let them come take me up, carry me, lock me up. Because me wanted for nothing. She calling Charlestown police station to find out the ways about me. But this woman, me not do this woman, not me no wanted. I got all me documents, for sure that I live in the Federation. I own a piece of the rock in the Federation. I buy a piece of land in the Federation. I build me house and I live here comfortable over 30 years. I am not offending nobody. I don't know what this woman wants. Then she gonna tell me she don't like foreigner. Which she made me to say when the petition, when you listen to that announcement try for air. How much people got a family all over the world. I'm not offending nobody. I ain't take away nothing for nobody. Everything I got, I work for it. I live here 30 years, 30.
Okay, Carla, thank you very much. And I've taken a note of what you've said. I'm certainly going to look in it, speak to the relevant authorities. Of course, you know, you said that the person is a police. So I would.
She ride the motorbike.
I would also want to ask you to you know.
Today she coming around at Rams, she going all the Rams until she leave the people then.
I would also have a conversation with the police here.
Tell me, go in the market, just like I was shouting to you, just so she going and treating people like a dog. And when you chat back to she like a dog, she don't like it.
Okay, Carla.
Okay, Troy, thank you.
You enjoy the rest of your night, and of course, I would ask you to go and have a conversation with the police. You know, go into the station, and I've taken a note of it, and I will look into the matter for you also. Okay, Carla?
Okay, thank you.
All right. You have a good night.
Good.
You know, gentlemen, give me just a couple minutes just to comment on this, you know, because, you know, I am one who believes that, you know, all of our citizens and residents, you know, once you're living in the Federation and you're contributing, you're not breaking any laws, and, you know, you're doing what you can to be a positive influence in the society, that you have a right to be able to make a living, to do whatever it is that you're doing, you know, within the gambit of the law, to look after your family and look after yourself and so on. And people should feel comfortable, you know, being here in St. Kitts and Nevis. People should be able to vend, you know, in the prescribed places once they're following whatever the laws are set up for vending, whether it's in Charlestown or in Basti or anywhere else in the Federation. People should feel comfortable. And if it is that you have come from Guyana or Trinidad or Jamaica or the Windward Islands or wherever you have come from, and you have decided to make a life here in the Federation, you should feel comfortable in the same way that persons from St. Kitts and Nevis have gone to many different places and have been able to make it. Of course, you know, you hear stories about people, you know, having to deal with cases of discrimination and so on. But nobody has left here from St. Kitts and Nevis and have dealt with discrimination anyway, and they like doing it. So we certainly should not do to other people the things that we would not want, you know, to be done to us. So I would not like to be discriminated against if I were to find myself anywhere, and I don't think it's right for me to come and you know, discriminate against somebody just because I come from a foreign land to try to make life here. You gentlemen have any input?
I don't have a problem with another person coming here to actually make a living, because, you know, things out there in the rest of the Caribbean, you know, especially when it comes to the money, the value of the dollar is very low, and Nevis carry, you know, higher wages, you know, in paying, and the people them look forward for, you know, a better life. So if you come here and you're doing the right things, you know, you're working hard, you earn a living, and you do what is right in the sight of the government and the sight of other people, I think the person should be leave alone. And I think she should really go to the Commissioner of Police and, you know, state a case, you know, because I find it's very disrespectful for the policewoman in St. Kitts to keep disrupting the lady when she applying her trade, you know. So, lady, I wish you all the best, you know. And I hope you can get over, go to the police and give her a statement so you could, you know, apply your trade.
See, if we reflect on what Marcus Garvey was all about, because colonialism has done a lot to us. Imagine, here it is. The talk has boiled down to you not from here. And it's quite unfortunate because we are same ship, just a same ship, different trip. You know, you drop off my mother in Antigua, you drop off my father in Guyana, you bring me uncle to Nevis. When we left Africa, we were just scattered amongst the islands. And so we have close blood ties with people from Antigua, Guyana, Trinidad, the whole place. This Caribbean is just a melting pot of in the diaspora. When we see ourselves of Africans, we don't see Nevisian, Kittitian, Guyanese. That is the small picture. And I am not ashamed to say it's one flag I walk with. And that's the ice green and gold flag. And anywhere I travel in the region, someone could identify themselves with that flag. So I think it's quite unfortunate what's happening to the lady there in St. Kitts. You know, and I trust and hope, I'm not expecting her to come and tell a lie, but I trust and hope that, you know, the matter could be rectified and people are allowed to make a living, man. That's what it's about. You know.
You have a call on the line? Okay.
You wanted some proof, you wanted some information and the little Garvey story?
Yes.
Well, let me share what I have, because I'm sure the general public out there want to know if Marcus and Ira are crazy. There's a brethren in St. Kitts called Derek Hazel, Master Derek Hazel. He is the one who seemed to have a lot of the information. He did a lot of research and he printed some information, and I'll start not at the beginning, but it is founded that the mother of Marcus Mosiah Garvey Jr. was a lady named Saraya Jane Richards Woodley, born in 1852, and the daughter of Saraya Mason Garvey Sr. and Henry Samuel Woodley. They were married on the 7th of December 1854 in St. Anne's, Sandy Point, St. Kitts, West Indies. Saraya Jane Richards married John Joseph Warner Sr. on April 30th, 1874. They produced 12 children. Saraya Jane Richards, now Saraya Jane Warner, left St. Anne's, Sandy Point, St. Kitts, bound for Jamaica in 1900. She took with her 2 children, Indiana Jessie Elizabeth Warner and Marcus Mosiah Garvey Jr. John Joseph Warner, Saraya Jane Richards and her 2 children visited their uncle Marcus Allen Bentis, then known in Jamaica as Marcus Mosiah Garvey Sr. in 1900. The uncle Marcus Allen Bentis or Mason Garvey his birth record shows he was born in 1840 to Isabella Mason Garvey, then the owner of Sir Gillies Estate in St. Anne's, Sandy Point, St. Kitts, West Indies. And he spoke about how he met his uncle. He spoke about how the same man, when he was in St. Kitts, was actually the father giveaway to the marriage. So he would have, and he's actually on the marriage certificate recorded in St. Kitts. And so this man have done a lot of research. I myself was a bit thrown back with the information. I could remember, however, though, a few months back I was listening to Mota Baruka, and he was talking about it. He was defending that Marcus Garvey was born in St. Anne's, Jamaica. But basically it seemed as though because he grew up in Jamaica and they heard about the St. Anne's, Jamaica, no one actually made the relation to he was born of a woman from St. Anne's in Sandy Point, St. Kitts. So it's something definitely worth looking into. I have no problem with my Jamaican friends, but we'll have to share. We'll have to share that one.
It's interesting, you know.
Quite interesting,
and to be quite frank with you, tonight here on the mark is the very, very first time that I've ever heard that. and it's the very first time that I've heard that, and it came as quite the surprise to me that in all the history and so on that I've heard, I've never ever heard it before, and it's something that I'm quite interested in and would probably like to do a little bit of research on. And I think some of our young historians here in the Federation, one or two of them should take up the mantle,
Definitely,
and actually go and do some digging and some tracing back, because I think if somebody look into it, it's something that should be quite easy to figure out, looking for birth records and so on,
right,
and baptismal records and so on, because I think those have been kept in the English speaking Caribbean for a very, very long time, so the records should actually be there. And if indeed his mother would have been from St. Kitts, then the migration time for the mother and all of that would have been put out. So it's something that's very, very interesting. We have a call on the line. Let's go to the line. Call you on the mark. Good night.
Yeah, me brethren, greetings. This is Jesus, man. How is everything?
Greetings.
Yes, I remember long ago I used to DJ over in Tabernacle, talking about the late 70s. And we used to play by this man named Nico Disco. And Nico is also a Garvey too. And he told me Marcus Garvey is his family and Marcus Garvey born in St. Kitts, but I didn't take it as nothing, I didn't believe him, but I just listened and say, yeah, that's good, man. But Nico, he died now. But he's Nico Garvey. He's from Tabernacle. So it could be something very close,
So the Garvey name is a St. Kitts title?
Yes.
Very few in Jamaica.
Very few in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, my brother. Okay, man.
Yeah, man, give thanks, man.
Very interesting.
Hey, listen, you heard the tune with Kabaka Primate, with the speech Marcus Garvey made. He make the speech in St. Kitts too. Kabaka Primate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice thing. I don't have the DJ could have that tune to the play, but it's a real tune that people should listen to.
Who says by?
Kabaka Primate.
Kabaka Primate.
Yeah, I have it. I have it on my laptop. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe our technician engineer can pull up something.
Yes. Okay.
Alright. Thanks for your input, man.
He make all over the world, Yes.
Alright, man.
You have to make it here in St. Kitts. Yes. Okay. Bless up.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Gentlemen.
There's also a place in St. Kitts called the MIS Hall, which is where when he would visit St. Kitts, it was one of the meeting place. Well, it's a place where he used to deliver his messages. I think the MIS was some kind of benevolent society.
Hold on a minute.
Sure.
We have another caller. Caller, you're on the mark. Good night.
Hello, good night.
Night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
No, listening to that thing there sound quite interesting. So as you say, what you have heard the gentleman say that the lady was born in Nevis, in St. Kitts, in St. Anne. And I wanted to be there if he's a St. Anne's, and then they take him and they must carry him to Jamaica and tell him that he was in the next area they call St. Anne's. So it appears to me that they must be taking him up as a small boy and carry him there and keep him there till he gets old or whatever. And then now they're digging his up to say, well, he really born in things. That would be nice, because he was here the same something since 1935. He stated he had a speech at the MIS.
Right.
So therefore, if that is so, we have to take back that. I'm telling you, we have to take back that.
Jamaica Valley go.
We can't look at that, because that is good, that is history. And then I'll be glad who the gentleman who speak with you with that little history. I don't know if he could have get some accept on it and let me get it called, because it's so good, really good that St. Kitts is a great countryman.
Right.
Having Marcus Garvey and everybody speak about Marcus Garvey. So then he belongs to us. He belongs to us.
Well, actually, Carla, I don't think Jamaica would want to let up a man like Marcus Mosiah Garvey. So I think the most significant thing to do is to share Marcus Garvey.
I know.
You know?
We'll have to revolutionize this one. That will be a revolution. We want him because everybody speaks about him. That's a great. They speak about Bracha, they speak about this and therefore that, and they say it's Bracha or some further. They bring him here and something to speak in the MIS. So therefore, maybe something in the truth that he born in St. Kitts.
Yeah, man, the fact shows that he was born in St. Kitts.
Yeah, man, he born in St. Kitts. Yeah, so I want to hear what the Rasta guys are going to say about that. Because, I mean, if they hear that, if they hear what you just said, but they will turn the whole thing upside down.
Well, that's what we're doing now.
Well, okay, that's good, that's good.
Okay, man.
Okay, thank you very much.
Alright, thanks.
You know, seriously, I knew that I would get some good education and so on tonight, because whenever you guys come, you guys have a lot to share. But that little piece of news I was not expecting, and that little piece of news, you know, has proven to be something really big. And if it's something that really has legs underneath it, I think it's something that it's worthwhile that we pursue. Marcus Garvey, of course, is a big name, you know, is a big time name, and as you have rightfully said, the Jamaicans have claimed him. I think he would have passed away in England, right? And you know, his remains would have been flown some years after from England to Jamaica, and he's now buried in the National Heroes Park in Jamaica. But to say that he's originally from St. Kitts, Nevis, and St. Kitts to be specific, is something certainly significant. So, you know, if it pans out, and you know, because we're on radio, I have to put that big if, you know, because it's just something that I am hearing tonight, and you know, I haven't had it fully substantiated. Yes, we have a caller. Let's go back to the lines. Caller, you're on the mark. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Yes. My cousin told me she used to
caller, could you turn down your radio in the background a bit, please? Could you turn down your radio in the background and then speak up a bit? Thank you.
Hold on. Yes. Yes. My cousin told me she used to live at Market Street, opposite the MIS Hall, and Marcus Garvey was there, and we had a meeting. She said she'll never forget this. He said, beware of the garret.
He said what?
He said, beware of the garret.
Does that mean the Antigans?
Yes, yes. Something they did him or whatever. But he said that, and dead and gone. She told me that, I'll never forget it.
Thanks for that one. You know, you know, it was tough for Garvey. Some of the islands that he went to, they never let him come shore, you know. Yeah, he had to stay off in the ship and so on. But I think it was hometown for him, man. He was able to come in and deliver his speeches. There's a nice speech that he made in St. Kitts. It'd be something worthwhile putting in the papers, Marcus, printing it. So that's definitely something that we'll follow up on during the course of this week or next week. Put a little bit more information out there, the exact speech he made in St. Kitts. Yeah, but I'm not sure why he would have warned us from the Garrets, about the Garrets. He would have had his reasons. You know, one of the things that Garvey would have been encountered with is the fault he got even from his own. And that's one of the sad part about it. And we still experience it a lot here today. Due to colonialism, people have changed their loyalty, and they have become loyal to different people. A lot of the colonial master, a lot of white people, even governments. You know, people have become so loyal that there's nothing wrong that you can do, and that's a very dangerous state for us to be in. But the loyalty of Garvey's followers at times were questionable. I don't think that there was really bad people, but the influence out there was great. You remember earlier we mentioned how the big shots out there, the government officials, the CIA and all of them, target Garvey, and so they actually employed people. They paid people. There was this guy called Hoover. He was actually paid. That was his job as a young CIA agent, Lacan and Garvey. Man, and he for years he spent examining Garvey and his movement and his association. He actually got people within the Garvey movement to start to, you know, bribe them, give them underhand, pay them information. These people bring out information. And all of this begin to tear Garvey down, especially when they came upon any little information that we could pin him down. Because we all know Garvey's businesses. He tried many businesses. One was the Black Star Liner, a shipping company that we moved to and from Africa. A great effort. And of course, that would have revolutionized the whole economics, because we would have been able to trade with home by leaving out America and England and these big countries, being able to trade directly. We would have seen a turn in the economic power of the black people. And the world was afraid of that. The world was afraid that Africa would again regain its level of independence, which means we would have been telling them, go out of Africa and leave us with our resources. You know, so they had to infiltrate it, and we have seen where they came up with fraud. Garvey was juggling money from one business to the next, to, you know, just to keep them afloat, and they were able to charge him with fraud. Even one of his generals there in the shipping line, he just got some bad deals. He paid like 2 and 3 times for ships, which really didn't cost so much. Maintenance was an issue. So all of these started to prove not so good for Garvey in the latter years. But I think it was really tough for Garvey to survive the kind of forces that were out there on him. You know.
You know something. When I listen to you, because when you read upon it, and you have somebody writing a biography, or whomever write the biography, they would say that, you know, he was charged for check fraud, or whatever the case might be. But without going into any real detail about you know, what actually happened, what were the circumstances surrounding whatever it is, because in a sense a lot of the history that you get is written by the winners. It's written by whoever is, you know, whoever is left there to write the history. So perspective in anything that you read or anything that you look at is important, because if you go on Wikipedia and you look up that, then you would see that, you know, there are some controversial things about Garvey. One would be the same imprisonment for the check fraud. Another thing that was controversial is that, you know, some persons say that Garvey was, I don't want to use the word racist, but he was more for non-integration, where he was saying that black people should stick with black people,
black for black,
in a sense. Some even said that he sort of partnered with people like the Ku Klux Klan, who were saying white people for white people, and he was saying black people for black people, in a sense. But as I said, perspective would be very important with those things, because whenever I look at anything concerning Garvey, I always look at the fact that this is a young 20-something year old, perhaps at that point in his early 30s, you know. So he would be somebody who has a revolutionary born and all of that, because, you know, young people, you know, could be a bit revolutionary. So whenever I look at anything to do with Garvey, I always check it with the proviso that he's a young person doing all of these things. And in a time like that, it would have been very difficult. He had to have been an exceptional person.
Yes, man.
Because for a young person to come from, whether it's St. Anne in St. Kitts, or St. Anne in Jamaica, and to move to the United States and to make such a significant impact at the age that he was making the impact, he had to have been an extraordinary man, regardless to however anybody wants to paint him, because the average man doesn't go from the Caribbean and migrate to America and all of a sudden start to be a mover and a shaker. And this guy certainly, as a young man, some people would still say a young boy, was a mover and a shaker in America. When he was doing those things, he was certainly younger than I am now, you know. So I always try to keep that in my mind when checking anything to do with Marcus Garvey.
Well, I give you one of the reasons why Marcus Garvey was so militant in mind, and he developed, you know, that self-reliance.
We have a call. Let's go back to the line. Caller, you're on the mark. Good night.
Good night, Brother Charles.
Good night.
Good night, Ras. Good night, Brother.
Blessed night, blessed night.
Yeah, this is Ras Politics. Listening to the program and talking about Marcus Garvey, I read a lot about him, I hear a lot about him, and, you know, he was a powerful man. But I never know that he originally born in thinking as a born critician. But I always say, right, that maybe he just born here by accident, maybe to traveling and his parents them. Maybe he born here, but maybe he initiated his parents them from Jamaica and whatsoever. But whether Marcus Garvey born here or not, right? We are African.
Yes.
We are African. People can say so, whether the career born is African. But if Marcus Garvey born is think it, right? I would like to know that how we critician, Nevis, the guy born in the Federation, so negative towards our black brothers and sisters in Africa. You understand? We got this tribal politics. We got all kind of negative thing against one another, custom one another, grudge one another, and build up one another, and all these things. And this thing will never stop. And these men was back in them time. You know? How we follow the direction, and you are coming and you are teaching the direction. But nobody at all trying to follow our African descendants, tradition and education, because we know we are misled by a lot of things. You understand? So I don't want to get out of this black struggle, brother. I don't want to get out of this black struggle, because if Marcus Garvey come here, he come here, come preach in the hall in Bath Stadium. I don't remember the hall. I hear about it too. And educate a lot of black people, some of our poor parents who was there and listen to him. And we still think so negative about Africa, we think so negative about one another. So I really think that why you be so negative against one another and try to pull on one another still. Because I really tell you now, I really like to see black brothers and sisters come to one another, like brother Colonialism, you know. I really like to just come as one and think as one of those one. We live in a small black nation down here. You say, and we so hypocritical against one another. Sometimes we try to uplift one another, uplift yourself when you look, because you this and you that. You can't get up there because your own brother keeping you down. And maybe some other race come in, and because some other race come in, you attach yourself to the race as a black man and try to fight you down with this other race. So, but I let me know what's really going on with our black people down here in the West. Alright then.
Alright, man, thank you.
Yeah, I just finished. I was saying, right, yes, thanks, Carla. It's the mental state of mind that we find ourselves in, you know, because of the transatlantic slave trade, you know. It leaves us in a state that we find ourselves belittling each other, you know. But Rastafari is here, Carla. We have a direction. We look to Africa, whether it's spiritually or physically, for homeland, you know. And if you tread the road of righteousness, you know, you will seek that African consciousness within you, you know. But I was talking about Marcus Garvey, why he was so militant within the mind, you know. and like I explained to you, what he come through as a youth man within, when he met with his white girl and he was called nigger and son, so he developed that self-consciousness about himself. I still look forward for the government around the world to have a Marcus Garvey
holiday.
Marcus, there's, for me personally, right, Marcus Garvey is the most significant black man that trod this earth. For a man, as we talk about his youthness, right, to bring not thousands, he bring millions together from scattered right across the world, from Africa, the Caribbean, America, binding together, There's no other black man ever done that in the universe.
Well, let's take a minute. We have another caller. Caller, you're on the mark. Good night.
Yes, sir. Bless you. Good night.
Good night.
Bless you. Good night to I. That's Marcus.
Greetings.
Yes, I bless.
To the brethren then. Marcus make a statement there which is right. But on the topic what the brethren just calling on there. Why we black people are always fighting and taking down each other. My little point of view on that is I would like everybody try to get a book. Willie Lynch. Yeah, man. I would like people to read up on that book, and they will find out why we black people keep fighting on each other. And there's another book that how to get out of the Willie Lynch syndrome, because that was what Willie Lynch was all about,
True.
Moving black people from one another, tearing down families. That's why he went to the masters and to teach these things, how to keep I people in line, So just want to share that little point of view right there for people to try to get that book, the Willie Lynch syndrome.
Yes, sir.
And then we find out why we black people are always tearing down each other. Blessings are strong to the man called Marcus Garvey, I teacher.
Yes, I.
Yeah, man.
Yes,
read
I.
him a lot.
Yes, sir.
Bless your love.
Yeah, man. Give thanks for the input. Really significant piece of information. Yeah, the Willie Lynch, we call it a Willie Lynch syndrome that we have, It was really a book that talk about this planter, Willie Lynch. I think they have a Lynch's estate in St. Kitts, where he came to planters and tell them, listen, I know how you could control your slaves and control them and their children and generations to come. When you no longer will have to tell them what to do, they would willingly come and do it for you, And his strategy was really crucial, and it was compared to like when you're breaking a horse. This man would take a pregnant woman, a woman, and you would if the boy child give any start of resistance on the plantation, sometimes they would kill, they would castrate, they would just tie the foot to one horse and a leg to another and just tear the youth apart. They would flag. You see what they do? They destroy the young black aggressive male in the presence of the mother. And we know how loving our mothers could be. Going forward, no mother is going to want to have that for their child. And so they would always teach their children to be submissive. Listen, even though you don't like this white man or this planter, don't say nothing about him. Just do what he tell you.
Let's hold that thought. We have a caller. The calls are coming fast right now. Caller, you're on the mark. Good night.
Greetings.
Greetings, I.
Okay. Not only a Lynch's estate, we have a Garvey's estate too.
True.
That is information. We have a Garvey's estate too.
Aye.
Alright.
Yeah, man. So at least
this Garvey thing look like you have a lot of sinkers links.
Yeah, man.
This thing look like something. I would really like to see this whole Garvey thing researched and see what the end result of it is. I'm looking forward to it. So Marcus, since you are the man who showed this knowledge on me, I want to see this thing continue. Next time, you guys come on the mark if I'm here, even if I'm not here. I want to hear what the end result is, that somebody went and did the research and we could say definitively that this is the case or that is the case. Because I'm telling you, this thing has me very, very much intrigued, and I'm very enthusiastic about it, because I wasn't expecting to hear a thing like this. I've read so many things about Marcus Garvey and all kind of things, and to hear that there's a possibility that he might have come from right here in St. Kitts, from a St. Kitts, mother, and all of that. It's very interesting to me. One of the things that Marcus Garvey, was for is this whole Pan-Africanism thing, this whole movement back to Africa, this whole idea that all of us who are black people in this part of the world, that we have that umbilical cord that stretches back to Africa, and that whole movement where persons could go back to Africa. And he was one who had that vision in his time, where he was thinking that that there could be some unity in Africa, where the African nations could come together. And I realize that as the world gets more developed, and as we become more of a global village through technology and all of that, we are learning more and more things about the world. And as the world becomes more of a global village, things start happening that we didn't expect. Like, for instance, a few months ago, during the time that the Honorable Mark Brantley was still Minister of Foreign Affairs, I remember that he came and he made an announcement that St. Kitts and Nevis had forged official ties with this small little country just off the west coast of Guinea in Africa. Sao Tome and Principe, right? And when I heard it go over, I think it passed over the head of most people. And when I heard him say it, a kind of chill went through my body. And, something like that happened. And it does not seem significant, because, we've been doing these diplomatic ties with so many countries. And so far as we start to get diplomatic ties, you just hear, okay, well, there's another diplomatic tie with another country. But the significance of Sao Tome and Principe, a lot of people probably don't realize, but Sao Tome and Principe were the testing ground for the African slave trade. That's where this whole notion of taking slaves from Africa and bringing them to work on a sugar plantation style sort of thing, a sugar plantation, that is where that was the experimentation ground for it. That is where the Portuguese, when they discovered those islands, and for the most part they were uninhabited. Well, that is what the history that they wrote would say. But those are the islands that they brought the sugar plantation style slave trade to. And when it worked there, and they realized this is something that could work, and then they had all these discoveries in what they call the New World, and they would have had Brazil and so on. They exported it from there to Brazil and those areas, and then the same African slave trade found its way up into the Caribbean, and hence we have all of us here who are the descendants of the slave trade. And I thought that, look at this as a sort of full circle moment happening here, because right there on those two little islands there outside of Guinea, right, outside the equator there, outside of Africa. That's where they tested out the slavery, and then they exported it to the Caribbean after they realized that it worked there, because they did it there for several years before it ever came across the Atlantic and came to the Americas. So if it didn't work there, we don't know what might have happened. But the thing is, history has happened how it has happened, and it worked there. And they realized that the people who came from Africa, that they could work these long hours on the plantation, and that they could do it well, and these plantations could be productive, that they could get that slave labor, and that is what they did, and that is how we end up where we are today. So I thought that was very, very significant. I haven't really heard anybody talk about it really, but to me that was a significant thing when St. Kitts and Nevis, we got diplomatic relations with them, because pretty much their story, being that they are in just outside of Africa, and they are small independent islands like we are, their story is pretty much similar to our story, and our story sort of started right there, because the slaves that came from Africa to there, they didn't have to go too far, they didn't have to cross the Atlantic. They came from Africa to those islands just outside of Africa. That's where they did their experimentation, and that was their proving ground, and they realized it could work, and then they exported it from there across the Atlantic to us.
Sad indeed. Just to go back a bit, and two things. One, the caller, as to why we're in this kind of condition, and Virgin there shed some light with the whole Willie Lynch experiment, which when you check it out you will understand why we hate each other so much today, black on black. But there was also, you see, we were always a communal people. We lived together, and that is how, even coming here in the islands, you would remember your grandparents used to live the same way. They would send you next door to give somebody a piece of pumpkin, and then the person gonna give you 2 potatoes. So you deliver 5 parcels in the community, and by the time you reach back home, you have enough things to put in your pot. And so, as a black people, we always lived together, and that was actually the strength of the black race, of the black family, that communal living. And the colonial man, the white man, recognized that strength within I and I. So their effort has always been to destabilize the black family. Even today, even today, destabilizing the black family is one of the main action that they would have taken to destroy black people. Because once you get inside that family and you destabilize the family, that's the end of our people. Now, the comment as to Garvey being...
We have a caller. Let's go back to the lines. Caller, you're on the mark. Good night.
Yeah, try me again. Good night. Good night again, brother.
Yes, I.
No, try. I hear something, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we people are so brainwashed with all these American and this European thing. So when Mark Brantley went out there and he get tied with the diplomatic thing, with these things, so people go out there go study. Africa developed so good now. And people go out there go study our culture, study a different things about our culture, our natural resources. Oh, no. Somebody say, oh, Africa. No, not Africa. Not country. We don't know the country there. You don't know the country there. Either England or America or wherever. You understand? So that's why you see the backward, Mr. Our people up to now still with our originated brothers and sisters in Africa. And where our foreparents come from. Child, let me tell you something, my brother. I always believe in brother. I used to be ignorant, But I own brother Colonialism. I own brother Rascafo. We call him teacher. And all those guys, people teach. And these guys educate me a lot about Africa and about different things. about the natural resources of Africa where this country got in, where we could benefit from these things. Where we could learn, where our people, children come along here and learn. But now, we should be brainwashed in a different society and a different philosophy. So, our people just, I don't know about it. I don't know about a country. If we're going to never live to see that black people unite as one. Will the country tell me here?
Yeah, man.
Where's the rest of you believe so?
Yeah, man.
You believe you're going to live to that?
We're doing it on a small scale, not enough, but it's there. It's really.
Let me tell you something now. I just really feel bad and put out how black them get on with black, brother. How black they get on with black because of this European vaccinated thing they got in the brain and this Americanized thing they got in the brain, brother. I don't really, because I know I come from another area. My mother 14 hours now. And we know we come out of the real struggle now. That's why it's me talking so my mother 14 hours. Brother, I come out of the real struggle. One house, board house, with Naga night. I come out of that, and now we go. And that's why you see that when a black man or a black woman uplift himself and reach a little further up and the black brother, how do they get on? And there was the same struggle, the same thing. And I will love to see one day that our black brothers and sisters really show real appreciation to one another and the respect and everything.
Yes, I.
As one black African, black African descendant. Okay, brother, I'll continue my program. Good program, I like it.
All right, man. Yeah, man. Bob Marley said something. Bob Marley in a song said, and when we got to get some food, our brothers got to be our enemy.
Ambushing in it.
Exactly. So you see, when you place the black man in a situation, anybody, most people, no matter of fact, in a situation of survival.
Hold on, these cars are coming real fast right now.
Fast and furious.
Caller, you're on the mark. Good night.
Chai, good night.
Good night.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay. Yes, I.
Yes, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm alright. Giving thanks.
Yeah, we got organized a trip to Africa.
Already long time.
This is Giwo.
I know that.
You know wait there.
Yes.
So we got organized a trip.
You told me about it.
Alright?
Definitely.
Yeah, I want you to see it for yourself.
I might come back with you now, Giwo.
Yeah.
I staying up there.
Alright. Well, my daughter wanted to stay up there. But I had some things to do here.
We happy to have you back in Giwo, just so you know that.
Yeah. Gentlemen, you're talking about
Garvey.
the problem with black people hating themselves, right? But I guess most of us heard about what we call the house slaves.
Yes.
And I find that even the black politicians, not all of them, mind you, because everybody is not the same. But I classify most of them as house slaves. What I find is, they're born and grow up in the community amongst us, but then once they reach a certain position and they start mingling with certain people, they are the ones also sometimes is the cause for the division between us. And so I say, people say, your own lice bite the hardest. Well, it's not all the time that your own lice bite the hardest. But one thing I know for sure, when your own lice bite you, you just get more upset. You don't be more upset when your own bite you than when your enemy or your stranger bite you. And so I say that to say, many, because you see, leaders, right? The way leaders go many times, not all times, but the way leaders go many times is the way how the followers go, many times. And I just find that too many of our leaders, I classify them as house slaves. I'm going to write a calypso on that. Yeah, good night.
Good night. Good night. you know, Lyman, I'm gonna jump right in with this because give a touch on it. You see how I look at politics? I believe everybody who contests a seat and wins should be a part of a government. I don't like party politics. Three you run in St. James, whoever win, they're waiting for the rest people to join. Whoever wins a seat is who the people want to represent them. So these are the people who should sit in government. There should be no government in St. Kitts Nevis as a federal government that does not automatically have Nevis representation. That should be straight out. That should be understood. Is it the constitution that we have to fix? Then it must be fixed. We cannot continue this kind of political arrangement because it is not healthy for the federation. You know, and I'm hoping that at this time, and what Stanley used to say at this juncture, you know, we could come up with a different mindset and realize a lot of things that we were doing in the past is really not going to work, and it hasn't been working in our benefit. You know, Gio said it. The vision that I find within our people, a lot of it is strictly based on politics. I was a community development officer in St. James, and when the NRP was in power, the support you're getting is mostly from the NRP people. And I was fortunate that when CCM changed, I was in the same job. And when CCM came in, the support was coming more from CCM. So it's as if it's like half and half. What we want is the whole country. And I think if we could have true unity government, which would involve, man, I would like to see every political party represented in the government.
And on that note, we have a call. Let's go back to the lines. Caller, you're on the mic. Good night.
Good night. It's a pleasure getting in on the program. I love the topic that you've been speaking about. But as we are speaking about Marcus Garvey, we have our own dilemma here in Nevis. We have Alexander Hamilton, who was born right here in Nevis, and as Nevians, we still need a visa to go to America. That's just one of my topics. But as a Nevian, we have our own flag, right? And that's a very important matter to me. Touches me dear to my heart. I can't even purchase a Nevis flag in Nevis, and it's hurting because I have foreigners who come here and would love to have a flag to take back of Nevis back home to show, and they can't get it. So there's a lot of topics that we could touch on. Like I said, the one that you are on right now is very important. Okay, but those two that I just mentioned as well, they are topics that need to be looked at. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carla. You're just about to jump in.
Yeah. It is sad to see, right, that the people of Nevis voted for a party which won the seat, right, and are not, you know, part of the federal government. I personally think the constitution needs to be changed, and I would like to know what going to be your representation, you know, and like in being in the opposition this time, so that the people of Nevis can get what belongs to them. You know, how you're going to go about it, you know, as an opposition, as being in the opposition, who have won the seat in Nevis, you know, and not be able to represent in on the federal government.
I wouldn't say that the government, I wouldn't say that our representatives would not be able to represent.
I didn't say that, you know.
Let me first say, right, that I tend to agree with what last IOI said, that especially when you said, as Stanley would say, at this juncture, because I believe that we have come to one of those type of critical, you know, crossroads. This is where we're at right now in our political history. We are almost 40 years in from independence from colonialism. Our constitution is one that we got, you know, sort of from the British model, from colonialism. St. Kitts and Nevis, we've produced many intelligent people, many scholars, all sorts of people from then until now. But we have not, since independence, touched one word in that constitution. Okay, and I tend to agree that for us to have a more workable union, for us to have a more perfect union, something that works for all of the people in the federation, that it is about time that we make some changes. I believe that change is necessary because, as you have both rightfully said, the people of Nevis voted overwhelmingly for CCM at the federal level, and our representatives will sit on the opposition benches. I would say, however, that our representatives, they all sit in the Nevis Island administration, which is the administration administering government here on the island of Nevis. And it is our intention, of course, to respect the will of the electorate, because Labour was able to gain a 6-seat majority, 6 out of 8 seats over on St. Kitts. Only the former Prime Minister Timothy Harris, the leader of PLP, survived, and the former Deputy Prime Minister, the leader of PAM, Sean Richards, survived. Only those two survived. Other than those two, Labour swept all of the other seats. So the people of St. Kitts and the island of St. Kitts have indicated, look, we want to cast our lot with Labour. We want Labour to run the island of St. Kitts. They indicated that clearly. Okay? It so happens that the way how our constitution is set up, that the majority that Labour was able to get on St. Kitts was also a majority overall in the federation. Right. So they were able to form the government without having to reach across the aisle and have any kind of coalition or anything like that. I certainly think for the federation to work better, that we need to change the federal framework. Okay? I was not around when this constitution that we work under now was being, thought about. The guys who were there at the time, they probably did the best job that they can do at that time with the knowledge that they had, coming from where they were coming from. And it has worked for us in a sense. We've had some issues, of course. In this election, the CCM cried for that fair share, because never before, let's be plain about it, never before in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis, right, did the government in St. Kitts and Nevis have ready cash or ready money that they could just do things with until citizenship by investment started to really make money. Before that, when governments wanted to do anything big, we either had to go and take a big loan, or we got some grant from somewhere to do it. Right? It's only through CBI that we are now able to take up cash, ready cash in the bank, and go out and do projects. And what we have said in Nevis is that if the federation has that resource available, and the resource is coming through the citizenship, and the citizenship belongs to everybody, that the people of Nevis should get an equitable share of it, because we're one federation. That is all that we have been saying. Right? We have a new Prime Minister now, and he's a young man. He's somebody who would not have been there before, and I'm hopeful that the things that have happened in the past would serve as an example to him of what not to do. Okay? And that he would go in and he would say, I'm Prime Minister for the entire federation. Nevis has a government that administers over on Nevis. Let them get their fair share so that they can do what is necessary for the people of Nevis. And that's all that we have said. And at the same time, while we are doing that, we have to recognize that we have some challenges in terms of the constitution, so we can work together. I've heard in the past that they say that you need a super majority or something like that to effect change in terms of the constitution. Well, I would say if Labour have 6 seats and they want change, right, they can bring the legislation for change, and they can certainly bring it to the House, And if CCM has 3 seats and CCM wants change, and the change being proposed is good change, and I have spoken to Sean Richards in the past, and I have heard him say that he wants change too. So if the changes being proposed are good changes, and everybody has said that they want change, and I see no reason why the entire parliament can't vote for change. You understand where I'm coming from? Everybody has said that we need some change. So we can have some of the best and brightest minds, come together to put down what the ideas are for change. And I would hope that some of you from the Rastafari community would be a part of that. Some of you would put your ideas in, and we can get some meaningful change that takes into consideration all of the people of the federation. But everybody has said they want change.
So like you need a Rasta political party.
And that note, let me go back to the lines. Caller, you're on the mark, good night.
Yeah, Chair, Nevis.
Yes, caller.
Yeah, Chair, I don't want to be too much in the politics now. I want the government to settle down and do what they got to do, and everything go peaceful. But I was thinking the same thing I was thinking here. That Nevis won 3 federal seats with the federal government, with the federal election, with the CCM, and I thought that they will be part of the federal government. I was thinking that will happen wherever party win the majority of seats on the still. Because remember them and Pam campaign together. Right? Them and Pam campaign together that if Pam win and them win the seat, they will join up together. If them and Pam get the majority of seats. So I want to know if Pam they get the majority of seats, 6 seats, or 7 seats or whatever, if they will involve the CCM and the federal level still. That's a question I want to ask, because remember the campaign together, Pam and CCM, because of whatever, when the 3 party come together in the unity construct, with the PLP, Pam and the CCM. So that's a question I want to ask anyone, the politician who was in the agreement, that whether Pam win, whether Pam will win the majority seat in Sinsit, and CCM will win the 3 seats, if they will still join up as the federal level. Alright then.
Alright, thank you, man.
Let me try to answer that,
As somebody who has spent, quite a bit of time.
And good night, Hilly, and good night, my friend over the lad, Sister Clara. Good night, Sister Clara, good night.
Levan, take care. But I will tell you, as somebody who has spent quite a bit of time in politics, I don't think now is a good time to go and approach, our good friends in PAM to ask them these type of if questions, because politics is what it is, and at the end of the day, the people say that when it's a democracy, right, the will of the people is the will of God, and that is what we got to work with. The people have said 6 seats to Labour, and to my mind, looking at the when the votes were being called out and so on, I had my own ideas, being around the politics for some time, and I would tell you that when the results started to come in, I was shocked. Okay, and it has taken some time to come to grips with the reality of the situation. But the reality of the situation is that the people over and Sinkis have said Labour, and they have said it in a definitive way, and we all have to respect that. And I would tell you that it is the intention of the CCM, the Concerned Citizens Movement, to give the support, to the Prime Minister, and to give the support to the government, and to work with the government, because the people have said, the people have spoken clearly and decisively and said, what they want. We, of course, would say equally, or even more overwhelmingly, right, that the people of Nevis have spoken, because we didn't have the case. There are 8 seats and Sinkis, Labour won 6, and 2 went to the other 2 parties. But in Nevis, there were 3 seats contested by 3 parties, and CCM won all 3 seats. And so the people of Nevis have equally, or even more so, spoken overwhelmingly and said that we want CCM. And we would hope that the voice of the people of Nevis would be respected. People of Nevis voted because we wanted that fair share, and we certainly expect it to come. And we don't want to be going back down the same road that we went down before, because if progress is supposed to come to the federation, progress needs to come to all of the federation.
Yes.
Progress can be on one side, and then on the other side you're lagging behind, because that is no progress at all, if you ask me. Progress only works when everybody coming up at the same time. We have a caller. Let's go back to the line. Caller, you're on the mark. Good night.
Good night.
Night.
I'm calling from St. Kitts. Mr. Politics should be ashamed to be calling and asking such silly question. I'm really sorry. This first time I ever had to debate.
Give Mr. Politics a little chance, man. This thing ain't easy, you know.
Give Mr. time I ever debated. I wish he had more wisdom and knowledge.
Yeah, man, give Mr. Politics a chance. You could understand.
Well, I love him. I really love him, but I had to learn not tonight. I wish he had more sense. Stupid is stupid.
Give Mr. Politics a chance.
If it would have been unity, if Tom had get 6 seats, it just sounds like the way for them. For talking nonsense. Good night.
Good night. Marcus.
The people of St. Kitts have spoken overwhelmingly for the Labour Party, right? They're able enough to form the federal government. The people of Nevis have spoken overwhelmingly for CCM government, but they cannot form the federal government. I would like to see the constitution change, right? That whenever the people of Nevis spoke overwhelmingly, right, that they could have a say in the federal government, just like the people of St. Kitts when they spoke. That is my intention right now here. And you talk about the new Prime Minister, right? Remember, his mother is Rastafari.
I was waiting for one of you to bring it up. I didn't want to be the one to raise it.
Remember, his mother... Somebody come?
Go ahead.
Remember, his mother is...
I want to make this point.
His mother is Rastafari. And he is... I think he have the self-consciousness about himself, right? What Rastafari been through. He has seen his mother, and hear about what over the years, the trial and tribulation that I as a Rasta people, trying to overcome such situation which was deadly in our part. And I know the new Prime Minister would have developed that self-consciousness, and he will share his thoughts, share with the people of Nevis, think about the people of Nevis equally as they think about the people of St. Kitts as well, going forward, Yeah,
well, as I said, we are hopeful. Of course, in all of these things, you would give the benefit of the doubt, and you're definitely going to give the support. Our leader has already reached out to the Prime Minister, congratulated him and so on. I've also personally congratulated him. He's somebody who I know very well, and in a case like this, we would allow the Prime Minister the space to do the things that he needs to do. Of course, we have a caller on the line. Caller, you're on the mark. Good night. Okay, callers, we have just about 10 minutes more to go, so of course you can call back in. We have a caller. Caller, you're on the mark. Good night.
Yes, hello, good night.
Yes, good night.
Yes, me again call back. That's something I can't understand. This fair why it was 60-40, 70-30 or 50-50?
The fair share?
Yes.
What we determined the fair share to be was population.
This fair share was only about the CBI only?
Well, it's not necessarily about CBI, but the thing about CBI is, and as I explained a little bit earlier, right, before in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis, in terms of revenue and so on, we had never seen anything quite like the CBI before that allowed the government the type of latitude that CBI has allowed. CBI has brought cash into the Federation in a way that it had never come to the Federation before. And so that is the reason why we have spoken about CBI, because CBI is a large amount of cash.
That. Well, I could say now that he is a new government, and he agreed to all these things. I don't think in my lifetime I will never see another party. I think Labour going to be all the time in my lifetime. Because remember, you're going to be young people coming all the time.
Of course, but
I call you all because I will love to close on with the Marcus Garvey in the Kabaka Pyramid. So I want to give you all a little piece of it, because I think this will help bring on the curtain, because it was a great weekend for Marcus Garvey. I could go ahead play it. Just about a minute.
Okay, you can play a little minute of it.
Okay, yes. I will start it here.
I think our technician is saying that we can't play it on the air.
Oh, no, you couldn't come to the phone?
Yeah,
I'll bring from my laptop to the phone.
No. I think they're saying that they can't play it, but we're going to get it together and we're going to play it. But Carl, I will tell you something, eh?
Yeah.
I like your spirit, eh? And I like how you say in your lifetime, you don't think we can see anything. But I tell you, politics is a very funny thing, eh?
Well, listen, I'm 67 now, eh?
Man, your voice sound like you and I are the same age.
Well,
you have a very young voice.
Well, I got to almost all my life. I try to live up.
Right. But you might have a long way to go still. You understand?
Man, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Let's up to this to all of you.
Yes, yeah, man. Respect.
Yes.
Okay.
We all the political talk. Marcus Garvey, I think what he would have been saying to us today, is even the way we engage in politics, we have to change. We need leaders like Marcus Garvey. We need leaders who are bold, leaders who are going to step outside of the box. Because one of our biggest problems is that many of our leaders go out to various conventions and they sign us up to all kind of agreements and things that really and truly doesn't work for I and I as a small nation, But because of our connections, we have to abide by certain things, and this, I think, is one of our biggest problems. We are still confined to that little box. Well, Garvey is saying, listen, let us shun all of this colonial thing. Africa needs us. Right now, we are recognized as the 6th region of Africa. We in the diaspora. And when we think about the riches, what is in Africa right now, every major country is still fighting for Africa. Just like in the Berlin Conference, when they shake it up like a cake and say, Germany take that, France take that. This is still going on. When, on the other hand now, we have become so clouded in our minds that we are even teaching ourselves, let's not have anything to do with Africa. When the whole world is trying to get a piece of Africa, what Garvey is saying is, we could even leave them with the reparation money and benefits. What Africa still has in it right now, if we can go there and get our hands back on the resources of Africa, we run this world again. And this is the mindset of Garvey, and I'm not sure how many of our young leaders in the region are thinking that way. This is what we need. We need a serious revolution in our mindset, the way we govern ourselves, the way we govern our people, the kind of laws that we allow ourselves to be governed by. This is where the real change really need to come in.
Okay, we have one more call on the phone. I'll take one last call and then I'll let you gentlemen wrap up. Caller, you're on the mark. Good night.
Yes. Right?
Yes.
This is a question I'm asking for enlightenment because I'm kind of confused. My understanding is that in the federal election, it's not a Nevis and think it's election separate. It is one election, one federal election. That's why it's called federal election. So my understanding, and you will enlighten me, my understanding is that in the federal construct, we don't have what I would call a separation in a sort of way of 3 seats and 8 seats. In the federal construct, my understanding is that you have 11
seats.
Right. 11 seats across the 2 landscape, but when the federal election is called, it is one election, and whichever party emerge with the at least 6 seats would have won the elections.
You see, Carla, if I could slip in a minute there before the 2 gentlemen wrap up, I will tell you, the mentality in the Federation in the late 60s and the 70s coming up, when our constitution started to be framed and so on. You remember in those days you had Labour and so on who were fielding candidates over in Nevis.
Yes.
Okay? The situation as it exists now is that for a long time you had Labour and PAN who would field candidates only on St. Kitts, and you had CCM and NRP fielding candidates on Nevis, and these are all independent parties. So Labour is a party, PAM is a party, NRP is a party, and CCM is a party. All independent. So it's not a case of where you have Labour fielding candidates in Nevis or CCM fielding candidates in St. Kitts. So each party is invested in these constituencies. Because if it was a case of where you had set 2 broad parties across the Federation fielding candidates in all constituencies, then they would feel obligated to look after all constituencies because then they're going to be running in the constituencies
if I may ask
in another time. But that's not how it is.
Is there anything in the Constitution that would stop a party from St. Kitts in fielding candidates over here?
No, there's nothing to do that.
So what I'm saying then, even though they don't, as it is right now, though, that is what it is. That it's one election with 11 seats.
Yes, that's exactly
one
what
election.
It is.
Because as you said, there's nothing to. It's just that they have not decided to. But nothing in the Constitution.
You should have called in about 15 minutes more with this question because this question requires some debate. But we only have 2 minutes more, and I want to give the gentleman some time to wrap up.
I was looking for enlightenment. Okay, then try, because I realize you soon close off here.
All right. So, Ross Marcus. Okay.
I just want to close off by saying that on Sunday, this coming Sunday, we would be having a big event in St. Kitts, Sandy Point, the birthplace of Marcus Garvey. We would be having our annual rally. It's a rally against all forms of discrimination, especially as it pertains to the cannabis sativa. And of course, it's also in recognition of Marcus Garvey. And so we'll be marching along the streets in Sandy Point, and then we would be at the Sandy Point Market. The march starts at 4, and that goes right down into the market, and then the event at the market starts at 6. Lots of speeches, very important information to be shared, a different look on the cannabis industry, entertainment, singers, poets, and so on. It's going to be a good way to spend the Marcus Garvey celebration with I and I, with your people. So inviting ones and ones to St. Kitts on Sunday 21st at Sandy Point for that event. I want to give thanks again to Mr. Brantley, our Honorable Premier, who always give I and I the chance to come and share with the general public. Give thanks once again.
Thank you.
Yes. Give thanks to the Honorable Mark Brantley for having us. Give thanks to Van for having us again one more time. And within the Rastafari concept, we always seal with an Bingi chant, ISIS. Its foundation is in the holy mountains. Haile Selassie, love at the gate of Zion, more than all the dwelling of Jacob. Glorious things are spoken of the city of the Almighty. I will make mention of Rahab and Babylon to them that know me. Behold, the Philistine and Tyre in Ethiopia, that this man was born there. And of Zion it shall be said, this and that man was born there, and the highest himself shall establish Ethiopia. The Most High shall written and content of his children, Rastafari, who says this and that man was born within Ethiopia, As well as players and singers of the instrument, they shall be the that springs are indeed. For Eli, Selassie, King Rastafari, Empress Mary, great ancestors, great gods and goddess of the ancient and black eternal race. Glory to word and glory to sound. Glory to the power of the living eye. Hail Selassie, King Rastafari. So let the words of thy mouth and the meditation of thy heart be accepted in thy sight. Hail Selassie, strength and thy redeemer. Rastafari. One perfect love.
That's our show. That's the last word. This show is going to be replayed tomorrow at 1. If you didn't catch it tonight, catch us tomorrow. Have a good night.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertisers.